Hello class, today we're going to be talking about Imperial China. So for our lesson question we have, how did the Tang and Song dynasties unify China? So how did these dynasties bring the entire Chinese culture together? So let's talk about these lesson objectives. We want to be able to explain how the Tang and Song dynasties unified China and to be able to describe the major contributions of both of those dynasties. So we have some vocabulary. Your first vocabulary word is jade, which is a green stone often used in carvings. Next, you have movable type, which is a method of printing which uses individual characters that are arranged in the order needed. Next is unify, and that's to bring people or things together. Porcelain is a very delicate form of white ceramic. It's a type of glass. And currency is basically money used by a country. Now, the Han Dynasty created a strong government based on Confucian beliefs. And Confucius was a religious philosopher, and his teachings kind of talked about the way that Chinese society should be set up. Now, the Han Dynasty sought virtuous leaders, and virtuous basically means that they had high moral standards. They gave government positions to Confucian scholars, and they used civil service exams to identify the best leaders. Now, this is a map of the Tang Dynasty, and you can see it started in between the Yangtze River and the Huanghe River, and also bordered by the Yellow Sea. Tang Taizong unified China under the Tang Dynasty. He used military skill to expand the size of the empire. He was able to reorganize Chinese laws, and he expanded on the use of civil service exams for government officials. And he also reduced the taxes for China's peasants. And we remember that peasants are poor farmers. Now we're going to talk about an important female Chinese leader, Wuzao. She assumed the throne following her husband's death. She actually oversaw the conquest of Korea, so she expanded the empire even further. And she won respect for her ability to lead the government. A lot of people thought that women couldn't lead the government, but she showed that that was possible. The fall of the Tang Dynasty basically happened because they had difficulty governing their large empire. We see this with lots of large empires. It happened with the Roman Empire. We saw it happened with the Ottoman Empire and also with the Tang Dynasty. Now, rebellions broke out against the central rule. So basically, people that lived on the outskirts of the empire didn't want to be ruled by the people in the center of the empire. So what happened is this fragmented the dynasty and the economy struggled. And that led way to the Song Dynasty. And it was founded by Emperor Taozu. And he conquered and reunified China. So remember how it fragmented? Well, he was able to reunify it. And he based government on the best aspects of the Tang Dynasty. He was able to create a strong economy and establish social services that helped the citizens. The fall of the Song Dynasty has to do with the Mongol Empire. Now, the Mongols were a group of people north of China, and actually the Great Wall of China was built to keep out Mongol invaders. But the Mongol Empire sought to expand its territory. Kublai Khan, who was the grandson of Genghis Khan, he defeated the last Song emperor in 1279. Now, the Mongols established the Yuan dynasty, and China remained under Mongol rule until the death of Kublai Khan in 1368. The Tang and Song dynasties were important parts of a great trade network. That great trade network is the Silk Road. So foreign trade was promoted along the Silk Road, and it expanded trade between the East and the West. So all the way from China to Europe, goods were being traded. And China was actually able to expand the use of coins and even created paper money, which was not common at the time. Because of all of that trade and the ideas spreading between cultures, art also was influenced. Art during the Tang Dynasty is often considered the golden age of Chinese art. It had great advances in architecture, carvings, and painting. The carvings were often that jade stone that we talked about earlier. In the painting style, there was a new style called the Shan Shui style, which is landscape painting. And Shan Shui basically means mountain and river. So it was talking about the beautiful landscapes. And Chinese artists were influenced by the Arab and Persian traders that they encountered on the Silk Road. And then Japanese art was influenced by Chinese art. Now, the Tang and Song dynasties also gave way to new inventions. So there were lots of great new technologies that were introduced during this time. One is gunpowder. The other is movable type printing. And that movable type printing is, you can see here how there's these different blocks that have Chinese characters on that. Basically what it was kind of like stamps, where you could take what would be a page of writing and with the movable type, change what it's going to say, but be able to mass produce books instead of having to write everything. And then they also invented the magnetic compass. And they had this magnetic stone or metal that was kind of spoon-shaped, and it would sit on there, and the metal that they used would always point to the south, so that was how they were able to use that technology to tell directions. Now let's talk about this timeline here. So we have the Tang Dynasty here, and over in the Middle East, we see Muhammad dying in Mecca, and that we know is the beginnings of the Islamic empires. And then we see the Song Dynasty. And then we remember that the Song Dynasty ended when the Mongols conquered them. And then we see that Kublai Khan establishes the Yuan Dynasty. And then for more historical context, things that we've talked about earlier, we have Constantinople's fall to the Ottoman Turks.